Okay, hello everybody. Today's date is July 28th, 2022, and my name is Leslie Williams. And what I'm going to do in this particular video is I'm going to share with you some information concerning the crimes of gang stalking. Do not consider this video to be an explanation concerning the entire program itself. There's no way that could be done. So, not in one video. So, keep in mind, I'm going to make some first generalized statements that I feel are appropriate and need to be made. Usually, when I use these type of microcards that I buy from Amazon, which I then put in this phone, which then enables me to make videos off a SD card. Most of the time, it will stop. It will segue into a second video once it reaches the 33-minute and 9-second mark. Now, when that occurs, when that does occur, a little small black and white dialogue box will appear on my phone stating you've reached your limit, which is in reference to that, and then it just starts another video automatically. So, this may be a two-part video series. I'm not sure when I'll be able to make the second video. So, if I do, whether I do or not, this particular video, once I title it, will be exposing gang stalking crimes, neural weapons, and torture. Okay? Now, so what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to talk to you about some of the things that are heavily reported to be going on in gang stalking crimes. And if you've never heard about gang stalking at all, when you start to hear me talk, your initial reactionary response or instinctual response or whatever you might want to call it might be disbelief. No matter what language is used to assist you in stating it to yourself, it's very easy for a person who doesn't know anything at all about this crime, or even the fact they never even heard of the crime before. It's very likely with some people that your initial instinct when you hear what's described will be, I don't understand this, or I can't believe something like this is going on, or this sounds crazy, or maybe it's going on, but nothing like this can affect me or my life, so it's not really a subject matter I'm interested in. First of all, no. Gang stalking is a nationwide epidemic. It's actually an epidemic in several countries. It's going on in every state, county, city, town, and neighborhood, and in every type of environment that you can think of. So just research any type of environment that you can think of extensively to gang stalking. Oh, absolutely. Now, when you do your research and you see specific things coming up, like color coding, like the following to gang stalking, color coding, verbal harassment, stalking, sound harassment, stuff like that. All that's got to do with auditory and visual brain entrainment connected to remote neuromonitoring. Now, you're going to see a lot of posts stating that concerning those descriptions of harassment. But at all that harassment, the main motive and goal behind it is to create and achieve auditory and visual brain entrainment for the sake of remote monitoring. The only reason why that aspect of it is nowhere near exposed ratio to the amount of exposures concerning how these, when you research this crime and you see these types of statements, you're going to see you're going to see tens and tens of thousands of posts concerning, victims stating that they're being harassed through color coding and community-based gang stalking and sound harassment and even the psychotronics connected to this crime. But the vast, one of the main goals concerning why massive amounts of things are going on in this crime is for the sake of the type of entrainment that I just mentioned. Now, once they achieve the entrainment, they then segue into neural enslavement for exploitation, which can include it lasting for an entire lifetime, in one or more forms. So that's not what this particular video is about, so I'm going to let that statement rest there. I suggest you go into this YouTube account and watch my videos, and research my descriptions, the information that I throw out there, and be patient in your research, okay? Because when you research each description, you follow the instructions, What your mind will do is your mind will organize the data together so that once you have a more in-depth understanding about this crime through each research description, your brain will interact the data together and you'll start to see the whole picture, just like you see a picture puzzle at the end, at the end of making the puzzle. That's literally what it's like. Now, I literally guarantee you, if you research what I expose and what is all over the internet concerning this crime, there's hundreds of books written about it. It's been repeatedly covered on national radio shows on several different dates, different national radio shows. I have been on national radio shows, okay, and there's tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of victims exposing it every day on every online platform. So, with that being said, what I'm going to do in this particular video is I'm going to share you a little bit of audio from one segment of the Technocrime Fighters episode number 43. And let me jump in and make a statement here, because I have mentioned, I believe, this video in at least one or two, maybe more, videos dedicated to the YouTube account you're watching this video through, no matter what date you watch it. And I've also mentioned it in videos that haven't been uploaded yet, pertaining to when you hear me talk about episode 43 and me stating that you should go into the Technocrime Fighters playlist that is on the Dr. Catherine Horton Stop 007 YouTube channel. In many of my videos, I have stated go into that playlist through her channel and watch episode 43. Well, I was just on her YouTube channel yesterday and discovered that 43 is actually not on that playlist. What happened there, I gotta make this statement fast. What happened there was because Technocrime Fighters Forum, which was a podcast type forum where 3 or more individuals got together, usually 4 altogether, got together and they did some very excellent exposures. Absolutely. But then I guess something happened between one or more, 2 or more of them, and they parted ways. And that's not uncommon to happen to gang stalking victims, because of the crime itself and just things happen. Okay, so as a result of them splitting up, and then Romola D, who's one of the persons in the podcast, she had also her YouTube channel that was dedicated to exposing this crime, and the Technocrime Fighters playlist was in her YouTube channel as well. Well, they shut her YouTube channel down about a year and a half ago, and I don't know if she's ever had the time to re-upload them, if she made copies of them. And I think I remember hearing her say in a few of her interviews that she was doing her best to try and make copies of those exposures in case that would happen in the future, and it actually did. Now, I don't know why Dr. Catherine Horton does not have all of the Technocrime Fighters series videos in the playlist that is titled Technocrime Fighters Forum in her YouTube channel. I don't have an answer for that. So what I'm going to do, in fact, what I'm going to do right now, actually, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play you a very relevant segment of Technocrime Fighters episode 43, because before Romola D's YouTube channel got shut down, I taped it, okay, and it was on her playlist. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play you a segment of it, so please be patient, and you got to listen very closely too, because for whatever reason, there's a little bit of noise interference, just a tad. If you listen closely and don't have any noise going around you when you're listening to this, you're going to be able to hear it clearly. But just be patient concerning any type of, let's just call it white noise in the background. Okay? So, it could have actually been, that part of the video could have actually experienced some type of sabotage as they were making it. Because their videos, the people giving those interviews, there was 3 to 4 of them usually on each video, talking with each other and exposing what they know. Excellent work too. A lot of times their online podcasts were being sabotaged in many different ways. So just bear with it. Trust me, it's auditorial. It's auditorially distinguishable. So you're not going to really have a hard time understanding it. But I'm just warning you a little bit now, so when you choose to maybe rewatch this, or as you're watching it now, you might choose to set yourself up in a quiet environment so no other additional noise interferes with your ability to hear what you're about ready to hear right now.
And in a sense, we are doing exactly what Aaron Schwartz wanted us to do. We are working on the most important issues of our lifetime, really, up to the 21st century. We are, and Catherine, that's a brilliant point to make. I think we are definitely on this panel. We are working on the most important issue of the 21st century currently. We are speaking out. We are carrying on, what, legacy is left for us. I wanted to make just a couple of points about Aaron Schwartz. One was, hello, has been... I'm sorry. Yes, I think what you're about to say must be extremely important. Sorry. I just wanted to make a couple points about Aaron Schwartz. I mean, one of them is net neutrality and the fact that he worked a great deal to make the internet an open place, did he not? So that a place where everybody could meet and share ideas and communicate and do their vital work and vital activism online. That's something that he worked for. And,
Okay, I apologize. I didn't fast forward it enough, so bear with me. It's just going to take about 30 seconds. Let me fast forward a little bit more. Okay, let's start from here.
Something that he was working for that's absolutely brilliant. And then the other thing, the point that I wanted to sort of accentuate that you really made is that he was targeted, clearly. He was targeted physically in many different ways. If, he was being given the profile of somebody who was depressed and being given the profile of somebody who had continuous bodily issues of some kind or the other, that's targeting. And you and I know it because we have experienced these directed energy weapons hits on all parts of our anatomy. I can literally speak for that, and the only reason that I'm here, I'm alive, and I'm perfectly healthy. Well, to a certain extent, I doubt that I'm perfectly healthy, but I'm somewhat healthy and, able to continue my work today is because of shielding. It's because of awareness, vigilance, and shielding through different means that keeps me alive today and keeps me working today. But what if people don't know they're being hit? They just think they've acquired a certain disease or a certain organ failure, etc. And they go to the doctor and they get the tests and so forth. And the doctor gives them pills and does x-rays. And you keep on going. You're on this treadmill, but you're continually being hit. Your health is going to deteriorate. It's going to degrade. You're not shielding. You don't know you're being hit. Your health is going to degrade. This is something that I actually wrote about in a notice that is posted now as a standing notice on my website. I wrote a note to all activists, to all intermedia, to all writers, journalists, reporters out there who are working to expose the evils of our time, telling them about targeting and saying, you may not know it, but you might have an insistent and niggling and nagging health problem that's become kind of chronic, that you think is due to your genetics, due to, something playing out in your family genetics. You've gotten rheumatoid arthritis because your grandmother had it, etc. And you go that route, you think that's it, but in actuality it's entirely possible that you're simply being hit with portable microwave weapons by a thug sitting in your neighbor's house and targeting you, and you don't even know it. So this particular notice became viral at the time, and it got me a lot of flack. I was hit extremely after this notice was posted. I also sent it to some other bloggers, and they posted it on the website, so it got a lot more views than my work normally gets because I'm being, completely ring-fenced, and I don't know who's reading my work. As I said, 5 or 10 people or 1,000, I have no idea. But this particular notice got a lot of views, and the point I want to make here is that I believe this absolutely. We know, those of us who are being targeted know how we're being hit to a certain extent. We know when we're being hit by antennas on neighbors' houses. We know when we're being hit by cars parked on streets, by Comcast vans, by Xfinity vans, by National Grid vans, by guys, driving the FedEx and UPS trucks. We know that we're being hit from neighbors. And, I know that this is somewhat of a controversial subject, but I'm willing to fight this out. We are being hit from our neighbors' houses. Neighbors are using portable weapons with us, or they don't even need to use any kind of weapon. They just need a little cell phone device or a directing device, which directs hits on us from covert repeaters and emitters that are installed in neighborhoods, that are literally, microwave beams literally coming from cell antennas and cell towers. So there is a control grid, and no doubt we will not know the exact ins and outs of how this grid is being set up or is working. But I think to some extent we all have an idea, those of us who are being targeted. But those who do not have an idea that they are being targeted are also being hit in these ways. And those people are indeed activists, whistleblowers, writers, reporters, people who are working on the edge, And so that unfortunately is what's going on. So I just wanted to bring attention to that very, very important issue. And therefore, when people say, how do you know that Aaron Schwartz died, was murdered rather than suicided? Well, I would say I know because I see the hundreds of holistic doctor deaths, and I am being hit with heart attack weapons, heart attack frequencies, literally on a daily basis, daily and nightly basis. This has been going on for 2 years. It's not a hit in my pectoral muscles, it's a hit on my heart. And I can explain that in further detail. I've done it a little bit in some of my articles, including in this notice. But because I'm hitting my heart, and I know if I weren't shielding at my heart, I would go the way of Aaron Schwartz right now, literally this minute as I'm sitting here. So therefore, I'm fairly certain, as you are, Catherine, that people like Aaron Schwartz, young, talented, brilliant, working for humanity, are indeed being murdered stealthily and covertly with these deadly, covert electromagnetic weapons using targeted frequencies at their hearts, at their brains, at various parts of their anatomy. I totally agree. And actually, if I may just add in, 2 more deaths that for me fall into the same category, I want people to remind people of those deaths as well. I always call it the cow of the colleges, because for me it was, as I said earlier, when you understand statistics, you also understand that sometimes when you have even just very few events, if they're sufficiently rare or unusual, and you fall into a certain pattern, that can already be sufficient proof of something. So, at CERN, I selected, I think, 40 or 44 events from literally quadrillions, and could not be CERN at DAISY, quadrillions of events to prove, to measure something very, very rare happening, and that was sufficient. So you don't need to have huge statistics. So for me, the death of these colleges is already, statistically significant.
Okay, now let me stop it for a second, and then I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Oh, Lord. Alright, bear with me a second. Fast forward just a little bit more. Sorry about this, folks.
He suicided himself by rushing out of a dead floor window. By allegations by his work, hint where he did not part of it. He well known at this point in time. And he was also somebody from inside who was killed. We also had intelligence ways, and then a lot of smearing done afterward to kind of paint them as delusional, or depressed, or suicidal, etc., which nobody can believe, of course. And as you say, we do need to apply our intelligence and relook at all of these stories and these deaths and understand what really perhaps might have gone down. I kind of wanted to also talk about paranoid schizophrenia again, because when you talked about John Nash.
Okay, so let me just fast forward a little bit more. Bear with me, please. Trust me.
Now, he had that message line license. He actually, he used and it records. So here, then, etc. And then all of a sudden he hears voices and he's hounded. He leaves the country where something was made, whereby he was taken medicine. He died. Critical. There in US. Activists, of free thinkers, of a lot of people in society, and it was drawing a connection between that and between what's happening in our country today. The reporting victims of surveillance abuse are being dismissed as paranoid, delusional, and schizophrenic. So that article, literally 4 or 5 days after that article came out, I think, is when I heard about the news that John Nash was killed, and it made me wonder, at the time, if there was a connection between the publication of my article and that. Because, of course, I don't think I mentioned him in my article, but, he's one case, and there's another. Gloria Naylor is another. As you know, Gloria Naylor.
Okay, you really want to listen to this.
Died in her early to mid-60s, just a couple years ago. And she is an extraordinary writer, an African-American writer, memoirist. I think she also wrote for television shows. The Women of Brewster Place, 1996. Now, 1996 is a very interesting memoir because it chronicles the long story of her targeting, initially from a neighbor whose brother worked at the NSA, and she's kind of fictionalized the story a little bit and written it in her story in 1996, but she says openly in the book that it's based on real events. And this book got some notoriety and got some attention from mainstream media, including, I remember when reading the transcript of an interview she had at NPR. But the tone in which the interviewer approached the subject was of skepticism and disbelief and almost indulgence, rather than serious investigation, exploration, or concern. And that always struck me, because here we have a talented and well-known national writer, a writer of national stature, who published a memoir on her personal experience of being targeted, stalked, surveilled, monitored, and being hit with electromagnetic weapons. And she was one of the early witnesses and early whistleblowers of targeting with EMF weapons. And then, her book kind of literally was not taken up by media. So that actually brings me around always, to that issue of media is complicit. If media won't cover, media is complicit, as you say, Catherine. And there literally are no two ways about it. If media won't cover, media is complicit. End of story, And that's what we've been experiencing so far. So that I just wanted to mention Gloria Naylor as well. And I think you may have mentioned Brownie Kilder, right? Dr. Rani Lukanen Kilder, Chief Medical Officer of Finland, who also was killed with directed energy weapons after literally spending a lifetime writing, talking, going to conferences, and whistleblowing about it. There's one thing I wanted to read out from her book about paranoid schizophrenia, sort of an explosive bit of information for everybody. So if you guys have the time right now, I'll read it right now. Okay, so she made this speech at the 33rd International Congress on Military Medicine in Helsinki in June of 2000, and her paper was titled Electromagnetic Neurotelecommunication and Cybernetics. Okay, and what she's talking about is the connection between paranoid schizophrenia, The DSM, the symptoms ascribed to paranoid schizophrenia as expressed in the DSM, and how reporting victims of intelligence agency crime are being dismissed and discredited with this paranoid schizophrenia diagnosis. So, in 1952, when electronic implants were placed in brain and teeth for tracking behavior and mind control, conditioning, programming, and covert operations, I mean, she goes boom right to the heart of the matter there, telling us exactly what was going on in 1952. Remember, the 50s to the 70s was when MK Ultra was booming, and then it was kind of discovered in the middle of the 70s. Then we all know it kind of went underground, and then it came out in the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate, in the Navy, the Air Force Research Laboratory, all of those military. There started to become a lot of connection between the military and the CIA at that point, and what we were studying termed as MK Ultra programs, that they were studying in the 70s, sort of got transferred over into non-lethal weapons, electromagnetic weapons, electronic weapons studies, etc. So anyway, in 1952, when these implants were placed in brain and teeth for tracking, etc., it became necessary to hide the technology, electronic stimulation of the brain, and implants during surgery or abduction from the public because of the Nuremberg Code, which prohibits involuntary medical experimentation on humans. The Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Psychiatry was created in 20 languages. Today, it lists 4 methods used in unsuspecting targets in electronic, chemical, or bacteriological warfare experiments assigned to paranoid schizophrenia, also for psychological warfare. All medical schools teach that one is mentally ill if you hear voices in your head, feel that you are surveilled, poisoned, beat with microwaves, listened to via radios, telephone, loudspeakers, TV, feel that your thoughts are read and reacted to by strangers, and if you experience paranormal phenomena like contact with the energy of a deceased for longer time, etc. Differential diagnosis that the person is a victim of mind control is never taught. Neither the fact that the technology indeed exists already for 50 years without public knowledge, without any contact with the subject. Remote neural monitoring can map out electrical activity from the visual cortex of the subject's brain and show images from the subject's brain on a video monitor. Operatives see what the surveillance subject's eyes are seeing. Visual memory can also be seen, and they can put images into the subject's brain while they are in REM sleep to do brain programming. Two-way electronic brain link is done by remotely monitoring neural audiovisual information while transmitting sound to the auditory cortex, bypassing the ears, and transmitting faint images to the visual cortex, bypassing optic nerves and eyes. Nanotechnology computers of certain intelligence agencies are a generation ahead of present academic computer technology. There has been a signals intelligence network since 1940 in USA, and Russian woodpecker signals toward Americans in the 1960s in Moscow. High-frequency beams of radiation to the embassy cause malaise, irritability, extreme fatigue, and effects are not temporary but include cataracts, blood changes that induce heart attacks, malignancies, circulatory problems, and permanent deterioration of the nervous system. Today, sudden attack or flu symptoms without virus or epileptic attack can be remotely induced in electronic warfare, as well as the use of amnesia beam to cause a sudden blank out of memory of a target giving a public presentation. So there's more. I mean, this is a fascinating paper that she gave, and the whole thing is worth reading. But I just wanted to give a taste of that connection between paranoid schizophrenia and how the DSM came out of nowhere at exactly the same time, 1952, when the intel agencies were implanting people, and it literally recorded those very symptoms that now doctors and psychiatrists use to dismiss the narrations and recountings and reports of reporting victims of crime. So, that's not a coincidence. Obviously, it was done deliberately. There is a distinct connection between psychiatry, the intelligence agencies, and the DSM.
Okay, so for now I'm going to leave that right there, and The reason why I forgot to tie off that statement that I brought up earlier concerning the most of the time when I'm making a video with the type of SD cards that I use in this phone in order to do so. If it alright, hold on a second. Oh, I got an itch. God dang it. So if this video, if I see that the dialog box appears, I might not start a second video on this specific date. I might wait till tomorrow, the next day, or whatever. Excuse me. But when I go to make the second video, I'll pick up where I left off at the end of this one. Okay? Now, when I go to upload my videos, I am absolutely being targeted at the wooded areas that I'm forced to utilize as a result of this crime intentionally making me homeless, and along my routes. So when I go to a place like the grocery store, usually I try to, usually I go out of my way to take a little bit of extra time to upload the videos I make, but sometimes I forget. Even when I do, though, I am being targeted at coffee shops, grocery stores, bus stops, bus routes. So when I'm in the grocery store or any other place that I may attempt to upload a video, because a lot of the times these satanic rats who are hosting this crime are hacking it. Well, my phone's hacked 24/7. All victims of this crime eventually complain about that. Oh, absolutely. So here's the gist of it. When I do upload a video, sometimes most of the time I don't have time to title it, because when I'm at places like a grocery store, and since this crime not only made me homeless, but it also staged vehicle accidents, so I would end up losing my car. So I just gave up on buying cars, because it's too expensive to buy a car, and they'll sabotage it mechanically and electrically to get you to go through your money. And then after you do that, they'll just stage a vehicle accident. So when I'm in a grocery store, I'm always targeted intermittently upon arrival, while I'm shopping. And then when I go to pack my groceries so I can put them on the bike, I'm in a stationary position. Okay? Well, when you're in a stationary position, it's easier for them to target you with the type of psychotronics that are widely reported to be targeting gang stalker victims. So when I'm at grocery stores and I'm being targeted while I'm trying to pack my stuff, one of my main goals is to hurry up, pack, and get the hell out of there. So I don't have time to title my videos right then and there. So if I make a second video, if I see that the dialog box appears, then that means that a second video has started. Now, if the dialog box doesn't appear, I'll just continue to talk and then talk about what you just heard. Now, let's see if that happens, though. Well, in fact, it's already went past 33 minutes and 9 seconds, so it looks like I'm okay for now. So let me expand a teeny bit on what you just heard Romola D state concerning her exposures, concerning what she stated that Renee Pittman exposed. By the way, what you just heard her state concerning that, there's tens of thousands of victims online stating the same thing, and much more. You only heard a very small part of it. So, some of the technologies that these wild, demonic, mass-murdering animals are using, one of the main ones is remote neuromonitoring. Now, and I sincerely apologize for the frequent interruptions, but I got to get up and do something here real fast. So why don't you get up and go get a pen and piece of paper. And while you're doing that, let me take care of this thing that I got to take care of right now, because it's getting dark out, so I got to do something. So bear with me a minute. Okay, folks. Now, what I want to expose concerning that dialogue that you just heard transferred from my audio file, which again was just a segment of the Techno-Crime Fighters episode 43. That is, for whatever reason, is not on Dr. Catherine Horton's YouTube channel, Stop 007, which is the name of her YouTube channel. She's got the Techno-Crime Fighters playlist in it. Let me catch my breath. And there's only 67 videos in that playlist, but more of them were made. Why they're not all there, I don't know. You know, because Dr. Catherine Horton is extremely hard to get a hold of online. So, you know, if I'm ever in a position to where I exchange a tweet with her, and if I remember to, I'll ask. I did look on Google yesterday to try and see if I could find it. Maybe somebody, you know, to see if somebody had copied it before Romola D's YouTube channel got taken down. And it wasn't an in-depth research concerning looking for it. But the amount of research I was able to spend, you know, concerning the time I spent looking for it, I did not find it. But, so anyways, what you need to understand about gang stalking is that gang stalking is a program, and it's a very massive crime. It's extremely intrusive, and it's involved in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of crime motivations. Okay, now illegal probate control schemes, including concerning adults, and more than likely illegal foster care. Okay, schemes is two of the hundreds of extreme crimes these demonic rats are involved in. Now, one of the ways that you get illegal probate control is by claiming that there's a need for it. Now, in order to claim that there's a need for it within our system that presents itself as legal, the system knows itself. So the system knows that there's laws there concerning what needs to be done and what needs to be required concerning what criteria that illegal probate control is achieved through. Now, calling somebody mentally ill and even neurally influence them into certain behaviors through the different identified types of psychotronics that these demonic maggots are using absolutely can affect many symptomologies that they can mimic. They can create artificial symptomologies that are identical to many of the mental health maladies that are within the satanic, demonic, organized crime DSM 5 or 6, I don't know what edition they're at nowadays, manual. And that's the manual that psychiatrists follow for diagnosing, okay, mental health maladies. Now, I'm not saying that there's not true mental illness, because I'm sure there is. But what I am saying, though, in part pertaining to what's reported, is that the demonic maggots who are hosting this crime, they know what is in that manual. Therefore, then, when an extreme vile animal knows, who's got the expertise to be able to induce artificial symptomologies connected to one or more, and trust me, it's not just paranoid schizophrenia that they're labeling gang stalking victims to be having, whether they complain about what they're enduring through any aspect of this crime or not. Because you got to remember, when each target's picked, they already got crime motivations for that victim. That's why they're picked, right? So it doesn't matter what label or labels that they plan on and at times do apply to any specific selected target. They already know what psychotronics is needed, okay, and how to use it, okay, in order to affect those types of artificial mental mental symptomologies that fall within the criteria of a stated mental illness. Now, so as an example, dementia. Let's look at dementia. Now, dementia, I don't think is really a mental health. It could be considered to be a mental health issue, but it's not necessarily a mental illness. It's more like a mental health malady. Okay, because there's usually with dementia, it has to do with things like memory, for a lot of absent-mindedness, which would interrupt with other types of neurological processes. But when you look at some of the features and functions of remote neural monitoring and voice to skull, including with voice to skull with voice morphing, it's very easy for these six satanic bastards to sit back and affect that technology in order so that the victim becomes very forgetful. Memory blanking, research that to remote neural monitoring. Hold on a second. Okay, so in other words, these demonic rats, they know that forgetfulness is connected to dementia as well as Alzheimer's. They know that schizophrenic people and probably even people with dementia and maybe even some other health maladies, they know that true people with those types of mental health maladies would not be able to, it would seem like they were having eclipses in thoughts and not being able to express themselves because of it, okay? Which is basically interrupted thought patterns where they cannot finish a structured sentence and or a structured paragraph in order to describe their thoughts and or feelings or experiences or whatever their senses are perceiving, because remote neural monitoring's got the literal ability to not only interrupt your thought but change them in real time, literally, okay, which would be where remote neural monitoring would just engage in thought interruption and then replacing part of that thought with voice to skull with voice morphing, because when they interrupt the second part of a thought, okay, they're doing it at the speed of light, and the thought processes are at a thousandth of a second. When you compare the numerical difference between a billionth of a second to a thousandth of a second, that's astronomical. A billion is 1,000 million. A micro is 1,000. So look at the difference between 1,000 million and 1,000. Look at the huge, massive difference there. So there's a big time differential related to speed. So if you have a thought like, I'm going to go to Walmart and then I'm going to go to the bank, by the time the second part of that statement is processing up through, you got 4 layers of consciousness. You got your unconscious, subconscious, preconscious, and conscious layers of your brain. Your thought process usually begins within the unconscious awareness. It streamlines up into the subconscious, up through the preconscious, up through the conscious awareness, which is where you start realizing what your language thought is as it's flowing through and segueing through the latter parts of the subconscious, through the preconscious. That's when you really start to sense it consciously, and then by the time it gets up into your consciousness, that's when you're fully aware of what that structured thought is internally, verbally. So what these little satanic bastards do is they're able to determine what that thought is at the subconscious level, including by, but not limited to, monitoring the subvocal speech of the victim. Okay? Now, when they see the composition and the theme and the context of that thought at the subconscious level, it gives them time to then do what they need to do with remote neural monitoring, which can be many different things. I'm not going to go into that part of it. But what they can do then is stop that thought, okay, or the second part of it, as it's segueing up and through the mid subconscious level to the preconscious level. So, because you really start to sense what your thought is as it's streamlining through the, let's just say, preconscious to the consciousness. Well, by the time it gets up to that level, you've already distinguished what the original thought is, but they change it so fast to where then the conscious mind experiences the alteration. Okay? Because of that time differential. Okay? You're processing a thought at 1,000th time a second. They're interfacing with you at 1,000,000,000th time per second. Okay? So the difference of that is the difference that you would think about if you can visually imagine when you go home and you turn on your kitchen light or your living room light. You don't see that light travel from the light switch, and you don't see it slowly covering the room. what you see is when you turn that light on, you see the entire room light up. That's because light travels at the speed of light, which is usually a nanosecond. Well, let me backtrack on that. It usually takes 1 nanosecond for light to travel 1 foot. So when you look at the amount of space of any interior room, when you turn the light on and it appears that the light is instantly covering the entire room, that's because it's traveling at 1 billionth of a second per foot. Okay? Now, so 1 billionth of a second per foot is extremely fast. Okay? And your mind and how your mind processes light, even though your mind processes information usually at the a microsecond, your mind still has to deal with the speed of light and how fast light travels. So this is why the brain cannot perceive, in part, why they're not seeing the light travel across the room and then the room gets lit up because of the speed of light. Well, they're interfacing with at least the simple speech, okay, which means they already got that thought deciphered before it even begins to segue up into the unconscious layer. That gives them that time differential to see it, do what it does to change at least the latter part of it, and then allow that change to then process up with the beginning of the original thought, okay, the first part of the original thought, and then that will then be what will be perceived. But the victim will actually probably witness both, because it takes some time to change that thought. So, they're changing it, and it's already changed by the time it's right before it starts to approach, let's just say from the very beginning of pre-conscious level to maybe a quarter into it, okay? Which is why the brain can perceive that something's happening concerning the thought being changed. So they're actually experiencing a glimpse of the original thought, and then the whole conscious mind will experience the change, okay? So if they got the power to do that, okay, which they absolutely do, okay, absolutely. Hold on 1 second. Okay. And you got to remember, when remote neuromonitoring and voice to skull with voice morphing, which is usually using ultrasound as its carrier wave in the right hemisphere, which is, it's very hard to be able to consciously distinguish when you're being neurally hacked, because they usually neurally hack you, not just at the unconscious level, subconscious and unconscious level, but also in the right hemisphere. And your right hemisphere is your unconscious awareness. Your left hemisphere is your conscious awareness. These little demonic rats are basically sliding in through the back door, with you having no visual view of them, visual or unconscious or conscious view of them doing it, which is another reason why it's so effective, and plus the fact of this, how fast they're doing it, as well, is what makes it extremely dangerous. I mean, come on, folks. We're literally dealing with demonic animals who are involved in. Ow! Oh, hold on a second. I stepped on something. Oh, God, sorry. Bear with me a second. I literally just stepped on something. All right, hold on a second. All right, so let me regain my composure here. Okay, so we're dealing with the most evil bastards that have literally ever walked this planet. These people are demonic beyond mathematical quantification. Literally, they're the most evil, sick, demonic bastards. I hate their fucking guts. Oh, absolutely. Every victim hates these son of a bitches. Okay? Oh, you just would not believe the sick shit they're doing to the gang stalking victims. Absolutely. So, and you would not believe the sophistication of this technology. Now, the people that are doing this and interfacing with the remote neuromonitoring, it's widely reported that they're mainly neuropsychiatrists, forensic psychiatrists, neurologists, and people that are heavily involved with the who got a lot of expertise pertaining to the neurological and biological functions, which absolutely includes psychology, okay? Knowing how people think, concerning how they think as people, okay? How a specific person thinks as a person. And trust me when I say these wild animals, they get to, the vast majority of the time, these satanic rats will get to know you better than you know you, because our brain cannot pay attention to every aspect of how we are every second of the day. So it can go in there and manipulate us to change our behaviors and our thoughts in ways to where it's very hard to detect even after you notice that something seems off. Okay? Because a lot of times when they do these neurological manipulations, they do it in a way to where the victim is likely to at least initially believe that the thought that was changed, altered, okay, would be something that the target would believe is coming from them. And I ain't got time to get into all that. Just trust me on that. Okay. Oh, absolutely. So we're not dealing with idiots here, but what we are dealing with here is criminally insane people who rationalize what they do. And all criminally insane people, the vast majority of criminally insane people on this that have popped up on this planet throughout the millenniums, okay, were all rational. They concerning their insanity. Okay, I mean, look at all these people that were able to rise to power. Do you really think that these people were able to rise to power, who are criminally insane? Do you really believe that they were able to rise to power without being able to have the analytical abilities to effect what they wanted to effect and get people's cooperation and create those structures that ended up affecting them? No. Criminally insane people can be very intelligent, they can be very smart, they can be very rational, okay? And they can be, they can absolutely sit back and plan each thing they do. But they're criminally insane. So this is why we end up seeing genocide and mass murder, okay, and insane rationales for it. Yet, though, they were sane enough to be able to rationalize each step to do it. In other words, they were able to think, okay? So, now, these crimes, these assholes literally know what they're doing. From A to Z. In other words, they know they're using psychological operations. Hitler knew it. Stalin knew it. Mao knew it. And all these other demonic bastards knew it. Okay, but then again, that takes us back to the fact that criminally insane people can rationalize why they do what they do and then plan it and then execute it. So, we get into an area here, and we are in an area here where, a bunch of wild animals took our tax dollars, okay, funded our own rape, the rape of our lives, the rapes of our futures, the rapes of our futures, children's generations, and the rape of our minds and bodies, okay? The last Sebastian of hope, my fellow American citizens, that the average person has is the ability to be able to take care of themselves by and through, but not limited to, obviously, but by and through mainly how we think, so we can then say, okay, this is happening in my life, so this is how I can deal with it based on my sphere of influence. Okay, this is too big for me to deal with, so what I'm going to do then is just leave, and hopefully I can then just leave the situation, and then therefore I can go and try to maneuver and manage my life in another aspect of society, or within society. Just like a bad relationship. You get in a bad relationship, most healthy people, or at least people who are able to flee bad relationships, will do so. Okay? Well, these demonic bastards don't let you flee. Okay? Because what do you think the stalking of gang stalking is? It's following and tracking, illegal criminal surveillance, so these wild horrors can affect what they do from a remote distance and benefit from what they do while keeping their identity a secret. Oh, absolutely. So, and using your and my tax dollars to fund it all. Okay? So getting back just to let me tie up that statement there concerning the illegal probate control schemes, if you can induce by and through brain stimulation, voice to skull with voice morphine, and all the other types of features and functions of remote neural monitoring, okay, if you can influence a person's decisions, speech, actions, and body movements within the actions, okay, then you can set them up anywhere and then claim that they're a threat to themselves or others, mentally ill, can't take care of themselves, or a combination of all three. And then you would then petition the state to take custody of you. While you're in custody, okay, in legal probate control, group homes, they will then file for federal and state funds in your name, insurance in your name, and then exploit the hell out of you through all of them. Insurance fraud schemes, staged videotape rapes, okay? And they'll even creatively let you know it through remote neural monitoring. Let me share some information with you about these sick, disgusting horrors. Oh, absolutely. And I do apologize for the strong graphic language. Hold on a second. even though it is completely appropriate in describing what these wild boars are, because they're nothing but absolute sadistic, wild, vile animals. Oh, absolutely. So let me tell you something about how plot manipulation can take place through gang stalking crimes. What do we do when we watch a movie? Well, when we watch a movie from beginning to end, let me get my flashlight on because it's starting to get dark here and I don't want to be in the dark. Bear with me a second, please. I gotta get it out. With me. Hold on. I like to be comical a little bit sometimes. It keeps my spirits up. Alright, so bear with me just one second. I'll get this out here. Now, so let's talk just for a second about how sick these demonic horrors are. And remember, it's this if I see the dialogue box up here on my phone, I'll just keep talking. And just look for a video that picks up at the beginning where I left off at the end of this one. Because remember, most of the time, I can't title my videos after I upload them. And you wouldn't believe how many videos I haven't uploaded yet. Some made even months ago. Oh, absolutely, because this crime intentionally, purposely, every day now, intentionally controls my entire schedule. Okay, trying to survive this crime, and trying to, my exposures of it are shrinking, because they're controlling my schedule so bad to where I don't have the time to expose and manipulate the hell out of my blog and sabotage my electronics. Oh, absolutely. You would not believe what these wild, vile horrors are doing every day. Absolutely. So anyways, oh, okay. Let me just find one more charger, because I don't want to use too much of the power on this one. So if I see this video segueing into a separate one, I'll just continue where I left off at. Now, my fellow American citizens, let me share with you some information about this crime. So pay very, very, very close attention to what I'm about ready to state. Now, so 3 things up front. When you research the following to gang stalking, you want to do it extensively, you want to do it thoroughly with a mature, patient, investigative posture. Okay? All right, hold on a second, because there's something going on here. Can't get the flashlight on. All right, hold on. So the first thing you want to do is you want to research electronic synthetic dreams and remote neural monitoring. Okay? Then what you want to do is you want to research, let's see, what else do we got? You want to research gang stalking, community-based harassment, and street theaters, which is basically nothing but stage props that they prop up around the victim, sometimes towards the victim, using community members usually for it. Okay, community members, sometimes thugs, sometimes syndicate wannabes, people who want to be part of the gang stalking program, syndicate members, probably on occasion, where they will prop up and stage events around the victim, stage props, where they'll play out verbal and physical theatrics in order to induce a response out of the victim. Thinking response and an emotion response. This is done for the sake of heterodyning through remote neural monitoring pertaining to what's reported concerning monitoring the brain as the brain is induced into a thinking response and an emotion response. Monitoring the brain when the brain is forced to access their memory because of them fucking around with victims' property. No matter where that property might be at in their home. Oh, absolutely. And then what you want to do is, now this is where these following descriptions is going to eventually segue into and be synthesized to what I just stated. Excuse me. So bear with me. Yeah. So, what you need to understand about the way the human being, the way we think through. A lot of different things compel what we think and how we think and why we think what we think. Okay? Like hunger. Hunger is usually when we think about what we want to eat. Okay? It's usually because our limbic system is stimulating and your unconscious mind to let you know you're hungry. And then when your brain starts to recognize that you've been nudged to notice that you're hungry, your brain will start thinking about, okay, did I pack a lunch today? What's in my lunch? Or what can I make? Just as a fast example. Okay? And so that is one way that your brain will compel you to think. Okay? So what your brain will do is it will start to jostle around the information concerning let's just say it's on a day you didn't pack a lunch. So on a day you didn't pack a lunch, you're going to sit back and you're going to think to yourself, okay, I got an hour break at work, I'm hungry, I got $10 to spend on lunch, where do I want to go? And then what your brain is going to do, usually, unless you haven't already made it up your mind, your brain is going to access your memory bank, your visual memory bank, based on your cravings. You think to yourself, I think I might want Mexican, but I don't know. That Chinese food that my co-worker was telling me about sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty good too. So what your brain will do is it will jostle around some visual memory references related to what your best Chinese food looks like and what your best Mexican food looks like. And then whatever your limbic system, whatever your brain stimulates the craving for more, related to these types of appetites is what you will be influenced to choose, because your brain remembers, the pleasure that you experienced on prior dates when you had Mexican food and Chinese food. So whatever your brain stimulates you the most, to have a craving for, is what's going to literally influence your decision to go get it. So that's one motivator right there. Now, the reason why that's similar to a street theater is because your brain is literally jostling these types of visual memory references pertaining to how the food looks, and then it's going to stimulate some memory cells related to taste, smell, and appetite. So, in a sense, in a roundabout way, that is a very small form of a mental street theater, because your mind is jostling thoughts and visual memory references. How Chinese food looks, how Mexican food looks. And as a result of it toggling back and forth and what your appetite is feeling like it wants more, is then how you're going to conclude that decision about what to get. Another type of mental street theater, is where verbal and visual theatrics are played out. Right? Yeah. So, all right, hold on one second, because I'm still looking for my headlamp, and I'm going to find it so I can put this other light down. Oh, it's really hot out here in San Diego tonight, and I've had my fill of even thinking about these animals. I kind of want to hurry up and get this video made so I can try and relax if that's possible. I know I set it down here. I usually have my stuff all ready to go, but today some things got kind of sidetracked because of having to deal with other things these sick whores were doing today. Oh, absolutely. Alright, so let me give you another fast example, two other fast examples of what mental street daters can be like. So, let's say you got a favorite TV program, one that comes on at least once a week or once every 2 weeks. So what do you do when you sit back and you watch a movie or a TV program? You follow a storyline. And the storyline is presented to you through verbal statements and what you see related around it. Okay? So you're looking at a visual backdrop, the landscape that's part of the show, while you're seeing people play out actions in a storyline, okay, that it's built up and around. Okay? So let's just say it's a movie. So you go to a theater and you watch a movie from beginning to end, and so what you're seeing is a storyline play out. And you're seeing it played out in environments. You're seeing it played out in through people and the main actors and actresses and supporting actresses and supporting actors. And you got the landscapes so that each landscape is apropos to that particular scene. And then you got the dialogue. As a direct result, your brain is following the content of the movie and you're understanding what the storyline is as it unfolds. Then when you get to the end, you're going to see what the storyline, what was achieved through the storyline. Okay, what the storyline was about, what was achieved, what happened, and, the whole 9 yards. Now, gang stalking, dreams are very similar to that, even though dreams can be fragmented and most often they don't really seem to make a lot of sense, but you are still experiencing unconscious verbal and physical theatrics playing out. Okay? Now, in gang stalking community-based harassment, they will, when it comes to the staged situational scenarios, so they can set victims up or at least induce specific types of thinking and emotion responses that they're after and or actions that they're after from the victim. What they will do is play out a street theater in order to go after the specific dialogue they want the victim to state. That could be for speech choreographing for the sake of remote neural monitoring, speech signal choreographing for the sake of remote neural monitoring, so later the victims can be subject to forced speech. To set them up by literally stimulating the speech of the victim to get the brain to say certain things. Okay? Oh, absolutely. Believe it. It's happening. It's all over the internet. Okay? Now, so situational scenarios in community-based gang stalking can be done for multiple motivations. For speech signal choreographing, they can be done to set the victim up. They can, for multiple reasons, arrest, to ban the victim from a place, to set the victim up for a staged event to lead them into then a resulting assault, okay, or robbery or anything. So then what you got there is you got physical people playing out a street theater. Okay? So when physical people play out a street theater, each demonic little bitch that's played for it, okay, that plays their dedicated role, used by a host who is using those people, will play out a street theater around the victim, concerning the victim, and or directly towards the victim and or the property. So street theaters and gang stalking crimes can have multiple motives, and they can be played out multiple ways. All right? For multiple motivations, too. So we got electronic synthetic dreams connected to remote neural monitoring. We got situational scenarios that are played out through the community-based gang stalking. Electronic synthetic dreams are storylines, visual and auditorial. The staged events in community-based gang stalking, where they will stage an event, which are street theaters, which then is played out in a situational scenario, is visual, things the victim is forced to see, and dialogue, bullshit that the victim's forced to hear. Okay? So that's a street theater, verbal and physical theatrics. Okay, just like a storyline. Now, but what they can also do is mental street theaters when the victim is awake. Okay? And this can be done by, let's say, they can stimulate a visual memory reference. So maybe when a parent abused you as a child or a teenager, or even a young adult. Okay, and through the memory mapping of remote neural monitoring, what these little wild animals can do is that they can, through the memory mapping, they can identify. I mean, you literally, I think you heard Romola D state, I think I played that audio file enough to where you literally heard her state that memories can be mapped and seen on their monitor, because they can. Just like in the movie Paycheck, okay? Oh, absolutely. Trust me, the technology's out there, okay? So, say then if they brain map a specific memory, and then once they brain map it, once they are able to view it, they record it. Okay? And then what they can do then is retransmit it back into the victim's visual cortex, okay, through ultrasound. Okay? And then while the victim is re-seeing that visual imagery of maybe them being verbally and or physically or mentally abused by a parent or a sibling or somebody else, what they will do when the victim is re-experiencing it visually is they will add a content and dialogue to it simultaneously for the audio cortex to hear related to what they're visually seeing. Okay, and so let's say if you got a son where the father kicked him out, the father was just either being hit with neural weaponry to influence him to do this, okay, or maybe he was having a bad day, or maybe he's just a bad father, or maybe they were just having a really bad point in both of their lives to where they just could not, for whatever reason, have a relationship with each other. Okay, it could be a combination of all. Okay, or one or more. So the father's kicking out the son, and the son ends up homeless. And then even some bad things can end up happening to the son. So that's justifiable anger for the son to be kicked out, especially if he didn't do anything wrong. Okay, because remember, there are messed up people on this planet, and people can be fucked up neurologically to do things like that as well through neural weaponry, because it is also reported that parents are being hit with these neural weaponry, so that the perpetrators can divide the family up by creating problems between family members. Abso-friggin-lutely. Make them mistake. And the same thing can happen concerning brothers against sisters, sisters against brothers, sisters against sisters, and brothers against brothers. These wild animals are widely known to do this. Okay, and this shit's been going on at least since the 60s. At least. Make no mistake about it. I've done my research, and so have many others. Now, so then everything that son saw when he was going through the argument before he got kicked out, then everything he saw as he was being kicked out, and then all the bad memories that are connected to everything that's happened to him as a result of him being kicked out and not having nowhere to go. He could have ended up being exploited. He could have ended up being abused. He could have ended up being abused and exploited for years. Okay, because maybe that family was being gang stalked. Okay, and they knew what was happening. The perpetrators knew what was happening, so then they will step in and act like the rescuers, develop these fake friendships in order to take him down into the rabbit hole that led to his exploitation. Abso-fucking-lutely. Gang stalking does this all over the country daily. Okay? Daily. Because they know they can do it and get away with it and make money off it with no problem at all. That's why they do it. So, once you have visual memories, they're called episodic memories. Once you have episodic memories of being abused, and then a situation got created because you were being abused that then led to your exploitation, you're going to have a whole hell of a lot of abusive episodic memories. Well, these wild, vile whores, okay, will literally stimulate some of those visual memories of what you saw when you were being kicked out, okay? Oh, absolutely. They can literally nearly influence a parent to say something in order so that what is heard by the son is something that the son will recognize later to be something only that could have been achieved if maybe like a technique. When you look at the direct conversation method of gang stalking, the direct conversation method of gang stalking is where certain people will be used to say things directly around you that only you should know. Okay? Something you might have had a conversation with, when you had a conversation with someone on a phone call, okay? When you had your own internal personal thought, remote neural monitoring monitors that, okay? And then deciphers it, right? So say if you had your own thought and or had a personal phone conversation, well, they'll prop up people around you to repeat aspects of it. But they can also neurally influence people around you to say aspects of it without even knowing what they're saying, okay, or why they're saying it. Or community members can be told to say it around you in order to make you think that these people are further down, in order to make you think that they are actually gang stalkers when they're just role players. You know, the vast majority of the time, they're just role players for the sake of the crime itself. But let's say if you have a parent involved in the situation that I've already described concerning the father and the son, and the father might one day say something 5 years later after the son got kicked out and they got back together for a second or two or a minute, whatever. And then the father says something to the son and makes a statement about maybe some type of exploitation that the son went through as a result of him being kicked out. Now, there would be no way at all for that father to know it except for two things. The father was, three things. The father was always maybe part of the gang stalking. The father was neurally manipulated to say it, because subliminal neural control you cannot detect. And you will act on subliminal neural control, and that includes your speech. So anybody can be neurally influenced to say anything through this technology. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. Okay? So research for speech in gang stalking, in psychotronics and remote neural monitoring, and voice to skull and voice to skull with voice morphing. You absolutely can be forced to say anything. So the father can be neurally checked to say something, and that something he says could be something that the victim privately endured when he was being abused after he got kicked out. Therefore, then, since the syndicate members know that the son doesn't know about this tech yet, then the son is going to believe, and can be influenced to believe through voice to skull and voice morphing, that the parent has been always part of what's happening to this son concerning all the exploitation he endured after he was kicked out. So think about this, because the father kicks out the son, and then the son, as a result of him being on the streak, ends up being sexually exploited. As he's being sexually exploited, certain things are said and done, and things are witnessed by him concerning what he's enduring. So, if certain things were said and done to him in private, how could the father know about it? There could be only 3 ways that the father could know about it. related to the verbal statements he makes to the son 5 years later. He's either part of it and always has been, or he, actually 4. So he's either part of it and always has been, which is the purpose of why he kicked him out. He could have been brought in on the campaign after he kicked the son out and then was just given the information by the perpetrators so they could then get the father to say it in order to make the son believe he was always involved in it. The father could have been neurally hit with neural weapons in order to stimulate forced speech to get him to say it, without the father even knowing that he was being neurally controlled to say it, and it would just come out of his mouth, and then later on, he might think to himself, why the hell did I say that? Or his memory can be blank, so he don't even remember saying it. Literally. Okay? And the fourth thing, I forgot what the fourth thing is. So, as a result, the kid is not going to start saying, when I got raped 2 years ago, this is what happened during the rape. I never told anybody about this is what happened during the rape. So how is my father telling me something that is identical to a T concerning what I endured during the rape? So he must have been involved in it. Or they can use voices called with voice morphing on the son to make him think that those are his thoughts after he hears what his father tells him. Because if you're being remotely monitored, your audio cortex is being monitored. Therefore, the perps can hear that the son heard his father say that. If the father's being neurally influenced to say, well, then they already knew the father said it. Okay? Now, what will happen as a result of this is that the kid will go back in his brain because of the innate biological defense mechanisms of the brain. The brain will start looking for answers. How can my father be involved in this? Because there's no way anybody could have known this private information. No way at all. The only other person that could know about this private information is the person who raped me. Okay? Because there was only 2 people involved in the rape. The victim and the rapist. And the kid never told anybody. So how would the father know? Okay? So you got those 3 stated options about how he could possibly know. Alright? But they're going to mind jostle the victim in order to get the victim to believe, okay, that the father was always part of it, and that's why the father kicked him out, so the son could be exploited in these horrific ways. Because that's what gang stalking does. Gang stalking will employ the direct conversation method around you, okay, and it will use neural tech on people around you, including family and friends, in order to make you think they're involved in it. Okay, they will also solicit family and friends to participate in it. No matter how much that person who's being solicited to participate in it knows concerning, okay, well, why would I be told to be saying this? I'm being told to say this, okay, but am I being told all the information of why I'm being told to say this? In other words, the parents can be just told to say it for whatever reason without the parent knowing that this is related to a rape. Okay, but the kid will think it because they're going to be nearly influencing the kid to believe it. Now, this is done in order to create, because what you got to understand about most parental relationships with their children is that ow, god dang it. All right, hold on a second. Ah! Oh, I think I just got bit by a bee. Oh, I did. Oh, fuck. Oh! All right, hold on a second. Motherfucker. God damn it. Ooh! Ooh! God dang it. Hold on. I can get it out of here. The fuck? Oh, God, that hurt. Ooh. Ah! Damn, that hurt. Fuck. Sorry, folks. Son of a bitch. Let me put something on this. Hold on. I didn't even see it because it's dark in here. Ah, fuck. Got me right on the finger. Oh. Alright, so anyways, with gang stalking criminal expeditions, what will end up happening is that, let's assume for a second that this kid, that the father was never part of it, okay? And as a result of the father never being part of it, but being neurally tech to do this, okay, the kid is never going to know the truth because the relationship is still destroyed, okay? The kid is not in an everyday relationship with the father. Therefore, the kid has no subsequent conversations, okay, with his father in order to sit down and talk to him and say, why did you say that? How could you say, why would you say that? Were you ever approached to say that? And if the father was being nearly tech to say it, you better be damn sure there's an extreme likelihood, okay, that the father's memory will be blanked concerning it, research, memory blanking, and remote neural monitoring. Now, one of the ways that they can get people to say things without them being consciously aware that they're even going to say it before they say it is voice to skull with voice morphing, okay? And that tech can be used on anybody, anywhere, at any time, okay? But you got to remember, these perps already know that the son and father have got a very bad relationship. In fact, it's a great likelihood they destroyed it to begin with through neural influencing of the father to begin with. So there's many things that have been going on here, but let's just kind of view it from that point of view. So what they're going to do now then with the son is they're going to take that son's mind and they're going to jostle around between good memories with the father and bad ones, in order to create contrasting visual neural pathways. So let's say on one day they'll stimulate a good childhood memory of the child playing baseball with his dad, and his dad giving his child a big hug, and his dad saying, "You're my son and I love you and that will never change." Okay? And maybe a few other good memories that the child had with his father. Okay? I know, hold on 1 second. You would not believe how much this has hurt my finger. Man, that was a bad sting. Oh, man, I really felt that one. I'll pick it out later with some tweezers. So, now, mind jostling, and I know this might sound like I'm jumping around a little bit here, but this is all related. Because what ends up happening to the victim is what is called a mental street theater. Because what do you do when you are asked a question about, let's say if your boss... Let me find some water here so I can put some water on this. Bear with me a second. God, that hurt like a bitch. I thought I burnt myself at first, but I didn't have a cigarette lit. Jesus. Ooh. I can't find my water. Oh, God, it hurt. Oh. Man. Now, so, one of the things you need to know about these, one of many things that you need to know about these absolute evil bastards who host this crime, you got to remember, we're dealing with, well, much of what is happening, much of what is happening in gang stalking crimes related to the trauma mind control happening to gang stalking victims is done with extremely similar techniques that are known, that are identical to satanic ritual abuse. And satanic ritual abuse was created by the CIA and some other demonic agencies, and it's a very, very, very perfected crime. It's not a crime that was just created overnight. It was a crime that was created over decades, okay, of research concerning the human brain. Is intimately connected to MK Ultra, absolutely. And the whole goal is to, excuse the language, but the whole goal at the end of the day is to fuck up the victim neurologically in the worst ways imaginable and unimaginable, for neural hacking, for neural control, for eventual lifelong enslavement. Okay, remote neural monitoring heavily relies on entrainment, visual and auditory entrainment. Now, this crime massively isolates its victims from healthy social relationships. And if they see they're dealing with an intelligent victim, if they're seeing they're dealing with a reserved victim, somebody who has never made really bad choices about letting certain people... this person's always made healthy choices about who they let in their life. Hold on. So, they already know that the victim is smart. They already know the victim is intelligent. And they also know... I can't believe I got bit by a bee while I'm making this video. Oh, absolutely. And it's dark. Bees are usually not around at dark. So he might have got in here during the day and I just didn't see him. Okay. So anyways, gang stalking isolates you in these satanic, demonic crimes. They isolate you purposely from healthy social relationships. They destroy all the ones that you had, and they make sure you develop no new ones. Absolutely. And that's done through many means, and trust me, it's happening. So just research isolation gang stalking. Hold on. fucking cigarette won't light. Hold on. God. Shit. Bear with me a second, folks. Yeah, of all times for my lighter to stop working. So, isolation and gang stalking is needed for multiple motivations, because, you know, it's very hard to torture victims, it's very hard to enslave victims, it's very hard to endlessly exploit victims who have healthy supporting relationships, okay? That's a given. Now, but in order for, if they see that they know they've isolated the victim intentionally, so, and they know that they're subjecting the victim to endless community-based gang stalking, which is nothing but psychological violence and much more. Okay, let me find my other lighter. Hold on. Oh. I hate videos that are interrupted, but I'm doing the best I can, folks, so bear with me a sec. I literally can't believe I got bit by a bee while I'm making this video. It's crazy. Alright, found my other one. Now, when you hear what I'm about to tell you, it's going to blow your mind. Now, since these absolute demonic, depraved, demented freaks, they know they got you isolated. So, what these little wild whores will do, remember at the beginning of this video, I talked about how this crime creates entrainment, and about how this crime will intentionally try to induce artificial schizophrenia. And artificial schizophrenia is one of their main goals, which is happening through entrainment and through ultrasound, and through a huge aspect of some of the community-based harassment, and through a huge aspect of the acoustic technologies, voice of skull, ELF broadcasting, even holosonics, the criminal use of broadcasting systems, and remote neural monitoring, visual interface, and auditory interface. And it can also be assisted with, by and through, but not limited to, auditorial cortex implants, ear implants, audio implants shoved up into the brain through the nasal cavity, eye lens implants, and much more. So there's a whole host of different ways they can do it. Oh, absolutely. And it's going on. There's books written about it. I got one in my backpack right now. So, just go to Google and type in brain implants and mesogens, nanomachines and the creation of false memories, written by Dr. Hildegard Staniger. Okay? That's one book of hundreds written about this crime. Absolutely. That's written by a doctor, too. Okay? She's not the only doctor exposing this crime. So, let's look at for a minute, I'll go back again and look at a minute about how and why these people would create this type of situational scenario between a father and a son. Because these demonic bastards know that the son doesn't even know yet that he's being gang stalked. He doesn't, so if you don't know he's being gang stalked, then you better be damn sure he doesn't know anything about who's managing everything he's enduring. He doesn't know anything about remote neural monitoring. He doesn't know a damn thing about any of the psychotronics. He's just trying to figure out why the hell every aspect of his life is going to shit. No one's telling him a damn thing to give him a clue. Not even a clue. Okay, because these wild animals control everybody. Okay, that comes into the victim's life and is in the victim's life. Anybody who is still there in the victim's life. Hold on. Trust me, you'll see all this when you research this crime. Absolutely. So, now, so why would they do this, though? Well, they would do it for many reasons. One of those reasons is trauma. One of those reasons is to destroy the last relationship, maybe the last relationship that the kid had. Okay? Let's just say the mother's dead or the parents are divorced and the mother's, for whatever reason isn't around. Any siblings in play, if any siblings are in play, they can be used and or for whatever reason. Maybe they're just not in a position to help him for a whole host of possible different reasons. So the kid's now on his own. And he's out there on the street still. Okay? And And so what they can do with this guy is they can just sit back then, and then through the silent monitoring period, they'll sit back and they'll literally, through brain monitoring, including while he's sleeping, literally nearly map his memories. I know that sounds funny, trust me. Sweethearts and baby cakes, just I can't believe I got stung by a bee. But that is, just research it. Research the hell out of it to remote neural monitoring. I mean, this is in tens of thousands of posts. Okay, it's going to blow your mind, literally. So, when you're sleeping, your memories can be mapped, because these wild animals love going to work on you while you're asleep. Because while you're asleep, you are defenseless mentally and physically. Hold on. I got to find my ashtray. Look, these are brain invaders. Even Jesse Ventura did a show about this technology, about this crime. And it was literally titled The Brain Invaders. Jesse Ventura did a show on it, I think it was back in 2013. Oh, absolutely. You could probably find aspects of that interview on YouTube. Google it, too. Okay, so brain mapping can occur when you're awake and asleep. So let's just say that the kids' memories are literally being mapped when he's sleeping, okay? So through the result of brain mapping, memory mapping, through remote neural monitoring, everything that they are able to map and see, they see on their monitor, and then they record it. Now, it's widely how do you think they're creating artificial synthetic dreams? Well, they got extremely sophisticated visual software, okay? What do you do when you watch a movie? You're seeing a visual representation with an auditorial storyline with physical backdrops in the environment as the story is being played out. Well, that's what a dream is. No matter how much the dream is nonlinear or sequential. No matter how much it makes sense cognitively. Okay? So, when they harvest the memory, they can alter it. Because when they harvest it, they're able to visually see it on a monitor. They then put that in the computer software of the visual editing software, where it's visual high definition visual production equipment, which means then that they can take the software that they use to create the artificial synthetic dreams, which is nothing but visual software, okay, where they can create any physical representation of any human being, down to the most minute detail. They can take your picture, put it in a picture of your face and your entire body, and put it in the software, and then get your body to do anything in that software. And you'll literally see your physical representation doing anything, including interacting with other people's physical representations that have been put into it too. That's the electronic synthetic dreams. And then they capture your voice print, which is how you hear me talk now, my voice print, and then they can put that in that same software. And then just create a visual production, just like a movie, with a auditorial storyline, with incorporated physical backdrops, so that when you see your picture interacting with other people, usually you being abused, including in the most satanic ways possible, it will be done in a physical landscape. So there's background, like you being in the inside of a house, and you being here, you being there, whatever, okay? So what they can do with the visual memory is they can take any aspect of it, or all of it, and alter it, okay? And then transmit it back into your visual cortex. And then while they're doing that, they can simultaneously use voice called voice morphing to make you think you're having a thought about what you're seeing, and they're presenting it in a way as either they're presenting it to you as a pictorial thought about something you're remembering, okay? Say if you get in an argument with your brother, okay, and he is accusing you of something, and you know what he's accusing you of you didn't do. So then, therefore, you have no memory of that physical action he's claiming you engaged in, right? So when he's accusing you of it, your brain is going to instinctively, innately, without your conscious permission, access your visual memory bank, and it's only going to take less than a micro of a second for you to go into your memory bank and say, what he's accusing me of doing, I know I didn't do, because for one, I know I didn't do it, and I have no memory of doing it. It would just innately do that. That's how your brain remind you that you didn't do it, okay? Now, so But what you got to understand here, I lost my train of thought, so bear with me a second. But so what you got to understand here about this technology is that if they want to make you think that your parent is involved in the gang stalking of you, including the gang stalking of you that lets you rape, because once he got kicked out, they're going to do things to let him know that everything he's enduring along his routes and the people that came into his life are going to start dropping hints, okay, that they're involved in it too and related to the guy who raped him. This is how gang stalking operates, literally, because they drop you information, you know, within situational scenarios and conversational scenarios to give you hints to psychologically disorientate you, while within the hint there's truth. They're going to give you just enough information so that little identifier can remain in the back of your mind, while dressing it up, though, to also, and presenting it to you in a way, though, that also creates doubt, because they want to mentally ping pong your mind back and forth, which is done for the sake of breaking the brain down to the synaptic level so remote neural monitoring can see how your brain is processing information. Absolutely. And that's done for brain mapping. So trust me, these are very skillful people, because they know that the defense mechanism of the brain is going to evaluate every situation, especially when it comes to life-threatening situations, and life-threatening situations can be involved in relationships. And so if somebody's telling you something that's got an identifier to it that's related to something really bad that happened to you, you're going to hear it. They want you to hear it, and so they're going to tell you just enough to make you wonder, to force that brain to think about it. How could this person be involved? Is he involved? Did I hear it right? So the brain's going to review the situation. That causes the brain to, in review, break the brain down to the synaptic level in the process of review. Remote neural monitoring is watching you break all that shit down. It's the reason why it's presented. Okay? And that's done for brain mapping. Hold on. When they map a memory and they put it in the monitor, they can take that memory, hold on, and alter it a little bit, so that they can take, when the boy was being raped, they can take a small aspect of what the boy was forced to visually see as a result of what he was forced to physically do during the rape. They can, because they were videotaping that too. Literally, they were literally videotaping every single thing his visual cortex seen during the rape. All right, so they could take small chunks of what he saw during the rape, and if they're recording your audio, hold on. If they're recording your audio cortex, then you better be damn sure there's a great likelihood that what he heard during the rape was also recorded. This is how bad gang stalking is, no joke. I mean, these people are vile animals, okay? So, so then what they'll do is they'll take small sections of what he's seen during the rape, and they'll put that in the computer, in the visual software, in the visual production software. And then what they'll do is they'll take part of that visual imagery and what he heard when his father told him that little tidbit of what he told him, in order to drop and convey enough information to make the son wonder, how could the father know this aspect of the rape? Because the rape only took place between two people, the victim and the guy who raped him, and the victim never told anybody about anything concerning the rape. So then how could the father drop that little tidbit of information that was only known, that was about, and was only known between the victim and the rapist? Therefore, then, that puts the idea in the victim's mind that the father was somehow connected to the people that were connected to the rape. And we're talking about now that the relationship between him and his son is abusive, and this is what gang stalking does, to force the brain to evaluate everything. Right? Absolutely. So, what they'll do then is they'll take parts of what the victim visually saw as he was being raped. They'll take part of what the victim, a partial part of what the victim heard as the victim was being raped, and they'll put it in the visual production software. Then they'll take part of the visual memory of what of the victim seeing their father tell them this little tidbit of information, and the information itself, what was heard of what the father said. They'll put that in the same splice of the visual software, and they'll kind of synthesize them and splice them so that they're then, when they're sent back to the victim's visual and auditory cortex, the victim will first see the little small segments of the rape, and then the victim will see the little small visual segments of what the father told him with the auditorial. Now, this is done to present to the victim in the way that it's being presented, to make the victim believe they're having a pictorial thought about what the father told them, and its corresponding visual representation to aspect of the rape. Now, this is done in order to make the victim believe they're having a thought about what happened between him and the father. And this is done to reinforce that sense, and and then subsequential dialogue can also be pumped into the audio cortex with voice skull with voice morphing. I know my dad's involved in this. How can my dad do something like this? Why would my dad kick me out? Did he kick me out so I could be set up for a rape? And then 10 minutes later, they'll stimulate a visual memory of the father being very good to the son when the son was a little boy. Now, the reason why this is done is because all adults have 3 aspects to their personality. And those 3 aspects, well, they have many aspects of their personality, but they got 3 innate aspects that we all adults have. And that is, inside of us, we have a child, a parent, and an adult, and a adult. And the child in us is always vulnerable, okay, to this world, because of the influences and things that we only got so much power over navigating ourselves within this world, and our power over it and control over it relative to our safety and survival. The child is also vulnerable when it comes to that continued relationship with the parent, even if there is no one, because having no relationship with your parent today is still a relationship with them, because you're supposed to have a relationship with your parent, and your parents are very important to you, you know, innately, at least when it comes to the child in you. Okay, so the satanic bitches who host this crime know all this, because they're literally forensic psychiatrists that are assisting in the developing of what's happening to the victim. This is all done for trauma and neural entrainment. So what they're doing is that they're mind jostling the 3 separate innate parts of that all adults have. We have an adult in us, we have a child in us, and we have a parent in us, related to aspects of our personalities. Okay? So the child in us realizes that we're still vulnerable. The child in us still feels the need of wanting and needing and having a parent, whether it's a bad relationship or a good one. We still all have those childlike memories of the good memories and whatever bad ones, right? You know, so when the son is forced to see these things in the visual cortex with simultaneous voice to skull with voice morphing, did my dad kick me out so I could be raped? My dad is fucked up. How could he do this to me? Look what I'm still going through to this date, because my dad kicked me out and I can't rely on him. Okay? So this is done in order to create a visual entrainment pathway with visual and auditory entrainment pathway. Okay? Then 15 minutes later, they'll process in the victim's visual cortex a stimulated, harvested memory through memory mapping and remote neural monitoring. They'll transmit back to the visual cortex a happy visual memory of a father and son, where the son is small and the father's big, and the father's taking care of the son. This is done so that the victim's mind can be pushed and pulled into the emotions that would be relative to that type of visual memory reference. As a result, the brain is processing it along neural pathways, and it's creating neural entrainment. So now what we got here are 2 opposing types of neural pathways. One's got negative and hurtful feelings in it, betrayed feelings, especially about the most intimate thing that can happen to you, a rape, and associating the father figure to it. And so while that's going on, you better believe the child in this adult is acting out, okay? Because it's an innate part in all of us. I mean, I see grown men and grown women today in their 60s and 70s crying their eyes out on Twitter because their parent just died. Rightfully so. I mean, it's natural in all of us. The vast majority of us. So, how do you think you would feel if your brain was forced to process this type of thing? And you got to understand something about the brain. When you hear a storyline, why do you think people get so sucked into movies? I mean, you'll be sitting in a movie theater and you see something playing out in a movie, and you'll say, no, don't do that. Don't go in there. The guy's in there. He's going to chop your head off. Don't go in there. Ah. You know, when you're watching a horror flick, that's because people get so sucked into the movie. Why? Because when you're seeing a storyline unfold, your brain is comprehending the theme and context of the story based on what you're hearing and what you're seeing and the physical backdrop that it's being played out in. Therefore, the brain is following the storyline, and when the brain follows something as it's unfolding, you're comprehending each nuance of it and the context of it. Now, comprehension is very close to belief. That's why sometimes, in order for you to even, get back into your conscious mode, that you're at a movie theater watching a movie, sometimes people have to go out and get popcorn. So they can say, okay, well, I'm separated from the movie now, so I'm, this movie's great, but when you're in the movie and you're watching it, you're engulfed in it, your brain is, your brain is like, there's an extremely, extremely thin line between what your brain is comprehending and belief, which is why children can get so sucked into believing that they're superheroes after they get done watching Batman or Spider-Man. Okay? Oh, absolutely. The brain works and operates that way. Comprehension of a subject matter is very close to how the brain believes a subject matter. Okay, concerning our neuronal processes. So when a brain is forced to see visual imagery of the rape while back to back at the speed of light, they're forced to see the visual imagery of their father saying something that only the father would know. The only way the father could know is that if he was part of the crime that set him up for the rape. Therefore, the brain is saying the father was connected. 10 minutes later, the brain is being forced to see the little child playing happily with his father as a child, and the father saying, I love you, son. You're always my son. I love you always. Okay, and hugging them, and they're having ice cream together, and so on. Okay? When we're traumatized through a rape, we literally regress to a child when we are remembering it. At least the most traumatic aspects of it, even if it's just for a fleeting second. Okay? So what these wild, vile whores do is they will literally try to entrain the brain into a false belief that the father was related to the rape by connecting those two things and forcing the brain to process them almost simultaneously, and to trick the brain into believing that what they're seeing and hearing related to this construct that was made through the visual imagery software and then sent to the visual cortex. They're trying to trick the victim into believing what they're seeing and hearing around that context, and what they're seeing is a pictorial thought. So they're trying to trick the victim into believing that they're having a thought about what the victim's already noticed based on the experiences. Okay? When this is all a visual and auditory construct sent to the brain, to the auditory and visual cortex. Okay? At the speed of light. Literally. The brain will the brain will process it at the microsecond level, but it's sent an ultrasound, so when it gets processed, it goes right through the brain. And whenever something goes right through the brain that's got comprehension connected to it, the brain is likely to believe it. Therefore, the son's going to end up believing his father was involved in setting them up in the situation that then set them up for the rape. Okay? Purposely. And then 10 minutes later, he sees his father loving him and protecting him as a little child, as a result of that type of visual as a result of that memory being mapped, okay, harvested, and then sent back to the visual cortex. Now, what this does is this creates opposing type of thought patterns, okay? And what that will then do is confuse the hell out of the brain and even drive the brain into psychosis. It will also create a visual interference signal because the brain will get confused. It won't know what to believe. Okay? About the nature of the relationship and who's really responsible for what. This is the demonic nature of your sick bitch, vile, wild, whore-ass government, because they just don't give a flying fuck at all. They're demonic animals. They will get down into the most nitty-gritty aspect of your life about the most important things value to it, and they will mind rape you and mind fuck you in the worst ways humanly possible just to achieve neurological damage. Purposely. So my fellow American citizens, I wanted to expose this reality because when there are many street theaters that can happen on gang stalking victims. There are the street theaters that are played out around the victim, concerning the victims, and at times directly towards the victim, done by and through the community-based harassment connected to gang stalking. Then you got the verbal and physical theatrics that are seen in the mind and played out in the mind through electronic synthetic dreams and remote that are created through this visual production software with audio, okay, where it's also going to have audio dialogue, which will get streamlined simultaneously into the audio cortex, and concerning electronic synthetic dreams. So that's a mental street theater, because you're seeing in a dream physical and verbal theatrics play out. Okay? Then you got the everyday mind pattern programming, which is done by and through many different means, stimulated memories, memory references, and what they created with this guy was the false memory. Because even though they're taking two segments of two separate events and streamlining them just like you would splice parts of a movie together so that the brain experiences one and then the other one's almost simultaneously in order to make you think you're having a pictorial thought about two events that seem to be connected because they seem to have an identical identifier connected to it, then what you got then is a mental theater playing out because it's being played out visually and auditorily. You know, the auditorial part could be, my dad set me up for a rape. I can't believe he did this. Is this why he kicked me out? Okay. My brain is telling me this based on what I know, based on what I was presented with. What other conclusions could there be? Because how could my dad know something like this? Okay. So that's a mental street theater. That's where the brain is being forced to process a mental and physical, a visual and auditorial playwright, a storyline. Okay. In the auditory and visual cortex. Okay? So, mental street theaters can happen to gang stalking victims hundreds of times a day for the sake of visual and auditory brain entrainment. To create psychosis, purposely. To create schizophrenic thought patterns, because the mind will jostle back from, my dad's a good guy, he took care of me when I was a kid, my dad's involved in the stage rape of me. Okay? And so the mind don't know what to believe about the most intimate parts of your life. Who you love the most and cherish the most related to an asshole who brutally raped you. And how they combine two together. That would drive a brain into psychosis if you do not know about this technology. Okay? Because remember, comprehension of a context is very close to the same features and functions of the brain that's dedicated to belief. Which is why they're presenting it back to the victim as a pictorial thought, when it's actually not. So my fellow American citizens, this can happen to a gang stalking victim 300 times a day, in one day. Okay? Related to several subject matters, all of it related to trauma. You know, mind rape and menticide connected to gang stalking is one of the most extreme forms of torture that has ever been known to man. Okay? Because the mind is forced to see it. The mind is forced to... They trick the mind into believing it. When you believe something, you're going to have emotions. You're going to feel traumatized. You're going to feel victimized. You're going to be driven into psychosis. It's very easy for these wild, vile animals to drive the brain into psychosis because they know the brain will analyze something down to its most minute detail in search of the truth. Because the father is important to the son. Okay? And the son is still in a situational scenario to where he's all alone. So that kid in us, the kid in him, while he's all alone and continuing to experience the everyday community-based gang stalking, he's part of him is experiencing that as a kid, and he's always going to know that he's experiencing what he's experiencing, and he would not be experiencing it if his father hadn't kicked him out. Well, these perpetrators know all of it. The perpetrators could have nearly influenced the father to kick him out. They can nearly influence that father to always say no if the kid comes back. This is how sick your fucking raping, murdering, demonic, bitch-ass government is. It is the most vile, human trafficking, raping, mind-raping, murdering animal that has ever walked this planet. Think about how you would feel. It's called the computer-to-brain link, the computer-to-brain feedback loop, BCI, brain-to-computer interface, remote neuromonitoring. Research all my descriptions. Imagine your brain being forced to experience something like this up to 300 times a day, and then experience a electronic synthetic dream along the same lines concerning the same type of context when you go to bed at night through an electronic synthetic dream. Because what they're doing is creating auditory and visual entrainment and psychosis, and including into psychosis. So don't take for a minute that forensic psychiatry is not involved in this crime, because forensic psychiatry has got the expertise to know how to do this. For forensic neuropathologists are also involved in this crime. Neurobiologists as well, because they're after hormones, emotional clusters, frequencies to harvest and heterodyne those when the brain goes into certain responses from the traumas that they endure throughout these types of, mental constructs. Damn it, my lighter's out. So I wanted to present this information to you. So imagine going through this while your brain is in a traumatic brain injury state because of being hit in the head with direct energy weapons and electromagnetic weapons. Absolutely. Because they'll fucking literally fry your brain purposely. With direct energy weapons and electromagnetic weapons, and then cycle this shit through your mind so that the auditory and visual entrainment ends up being induced, and the psychosis from it ends up being induced and entrained to disassociated states, traumatic brain injury states, and concussive states. If these people were ever caught in the entirety of their programs, in the entirety of the makeup of just this aspect alone, would put these vile animals in a federal penitentiary for life when it came to just one torture episode. If the courts were able to see every aspect of what was factually done and the neurological damage that resulted just from one torture episode. There are victims out here who are experiencing shit like this 200-300 times a day. Neurological rape to its highest order. So the next time you go see a movie and you get real engulfed in it, and you even might hear yourself saying, no, don't go in there. He's behind the door. Don't go in there. Why do you think your brain is saying that? Because while you're in that moment, your brain is comprehending the storyline and you are believing what you're seeing. Because belief and comprehension, it's the size of a spider web. That little thin little web, the little itty bitty thin web strands that you see in a spider web. That's how thin the veil is in your brain when it comes to your brain knowing the difference between comprehension of a subject matter and belief of a subject matter, which is why it's so traumatizing when they send these mental constructs to the victim's brain. That's why gang stalking will always anchor an identifier to trauma and then to situational scenarios wrapped around it. Absolutely. So, who are the main identified hosts of this satanic shit? The DOD, the DOD, the DIA, the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, the DHS, state, county, and local police, fusion centers, sprinkles of and aspects of the United States military, and then you got all their other colluding partners, Fortune 500 companies are reported to be involved in aspects of this crime. Corporations, institutions and universities, neurological research groups, and the whole fucking 9 yards. I ever get a hold of this satanic bitch who put me in this program, they're going to wish they were never born. I don't care if he's 7 feet tall and weighs 400 pounds. Hold on. Oh, absolutely. You wouldn't believe what they've done to me in my life. You just would not believe it. All right, everybody, thank you for listening. This is just, what you heard today in this particular video is not even 0.00001% of what a gang stalking victim can endure every day. Non-stop. It's not even 0.0001%. Meaning that while they can be experiencing shit like this up to 300 times a day, they can also be enduring massive other stuff as they're enduring it and in between. So the next time you fucking see your government say anything through the news or a newspaper or whatever, say fuck off. I don't believe a damn thing you say, and walk the fuck away. Everybody, thank you for listening. I sincerely apologize for the interruptions and the language. I literally did get stung by a bee. I'm looking at the stinger right now on my finger. It's not hurting now, but I'm going to tell you something right now. That sting was a bitch. Oh, absolutely. Stung me right on the finger. It had to have been in here during the daytime because bees aren't usually out at night. So it slipped in somehow. Alright, I gotta let you go. Okay, so everybody have a good day. Be good to each other out there. Research what I state. Your brain will intellect the data from the research results from each research description. The mind will interlock the data together. You'll see I'm telling you the truth. Research, you can also go to Google and YouTube and research and take what I stated here concerning this situation about what's done to the son, between the son and daughter, father and son, and go back and listen to the audio I played from the Techno Crime Fighters episode 43 that I was talking about earlier, that I played some audio from. You openly heard Romola D openly state that they can map the memories, the visual memories, and put them on a monitor. You heard her say that they can send stuff to the visual cortex and take stuff from it. And then research all my descriptions. Oh, absolutely. Okay, so vile animals like this are only allowed to prosper through ignorance. Okay, because getting through the doorway of ignorance, seeing what's on the other side of the curtain, is the first step in stopping these fuckers. You can't stop a wild animal if you don't know they exist. Okay? Oh, absolutely. So, even though there's tens of thousands of victims who seem to be powerless right now over stopping any and all aspects of this crime, trust me when I say this crime is not going to be able to survive forever. Okay? There's no way. The human race won't put up with it. Okay? So, getting this out to the American consciousness in mass is the key in resolving this issue. Okay? And until that happens, these criminally insane whores are going to be able to, run around town and do whatever the hell they want to do to anybody they want to do it to, and not get punished for any of it until the American population becomes aware. Right now, today, there's hundreds of thousands of gang stalking victims. Tens of thousands are reporting this crime daily online, on every online platform that you can think of. And these same vile horrors will take the tortured victim and lock them up in an insane asylum or a group home just to shut them up and to make money off them. Okay, for racketeering schemes, insurance fraud schemes, staged videotape rapes, and much more. So, research this crime, because it's an epidemic in America. And this is only a extremely small aspect of it. Oh, absolutely. Have a good day, everybody. Stay out of trouble. Be good to each other. Say a prayer for gang stalking victims and this nation, because we need it. And I guess I'll be talking to you soon. So stay tuned to this account, and everybody have a good night.